Secretary, thank you for being here. I do have two questions for you. One is probably more policy related. When you were here last, you spoke about how proud you were that this budget took a soft hand with taxes. This morning you talked about that it flat out does redistribute money from communities, many of which are well managed. One in which I live, which as a result of this budget is now looking at potentially a 4.5% property tax increase. We've already talked about the property tax exemption that will go away. Call it small, but an extra 5 cents for any bottle somebody, might purchase a beverage, and the unknown increased fees that could affect multiple different things. And it seems like over and over, starting from in 2000, was it in 2011, 2015, when we had, the largest tax increase in our state's history. Call these budget bombs, if you will. That was actually retroactive, 7 or 8 months. Some people didn't even get a paycheck because they had to pay their income taxes that were increased and retroactive. So my community, when I met with our Board of Finance and our Board of Selectmen, asked, how can the state continue to do this? Like, now throw out at this time a pension obligation with no discussion up front, not even an opportunity to say, hey, we're thinking about maybe we will need to head in this direction. So that's my first question about the policy decisions in the process. My second one has to do with our hospitals, right? I think you said in this room, or one of them last year or the year before, why going after the hospitals? Because that's where the money is. So now we're putting in place where municipalities can tax our hospitals. And I understand the justification that, in fact, we're going to have a better deal with them now with Medicaid reimbursements. I think that's the deal they went into before, where they have been incredibly harmed. And the impact of that is jobs. The impact of that is services at no cost to our urban centers that we're saying on this whole redistribution of money need more support. So those are my two questions to you, policy and hospitals.
Well, thank you for that. First of all, I would point out that we did not propose raising the deposit on water bottles to 10 cents, only on other areas. We appreciate that water is generally a cheaper commodity, and the higher deposit would be punitive. So
well, there you go.
I just would
I feel a lot
by way
better.
of correction. Look, I appreciate that you don't agree with the budget proposals that we've made, and that I appreciate that people don't like to be asked to pay more. Unfortunately, we only can get the government that we're willing to pay for in this country and in this state. That we ultimately, there is nobody else out there who's going to pay. I mean, notwithstanding the fact that we can try to get as much out of Medicaid and out of the federal government, and try to sue bad actors and companies that have left us holding the bag, and bring more money into the state, and we do all of those things. But generally speaking, we can only get the government that we can afford. And if we don't, if we're not prepared to raise fees or taxes to fund those activities, then we should be prepared to discontinue those activities. And I look forward to seeing your caucus's proposal to do just that.
So thank you for that, because we might want to also realistically address, right, the continuing revenue shortfalls that continue to get us into this, and maybe there's some policy decisions that have a direct effect. But thank you for now being willing to answer my hospital question.
No, the hospital question, I don't believe that I do appreciate that there is, I've said it before, that there's some well-earned mutual distrust between the state and the hospitals, because we did make a provider tax supplemental payment agreement or passed a series of laws in the past that we then, because of continuing fiscal distress, were unable to keep our full end of the bargain. And hospitals are while their net, obviously the amount of money that we give them in fee for services is quite large. On the supplemental payments, their supplemental payments are more than offset by taxes they make to the state of Connecticut. The proposal that we have before you today, while it doesn't address those longstanding problems, it is in and of itself neutral or positive to hospitals. In fact, hospitals recently identified that they thought that the tax proposal, the details of our hospital tax language would produce a larger amount of revenue than we had projected in the budget. And my response to them, and I believe I copied this committee chair, was that if there was additional revenue available, that should be used to augment those supplemental payments to hospitals. I'm not looking to balance this budget on the backs of hospitals at all. In fact, hospitals are net winners under the governor's budget proposal compared to where they would be under a continuation of current law. We appreciate that subjecting them to property taxes is challenging, but we're hopeful that we can find a way to take advantage of the leverage that Medicaid brings to us to benefit those communities that host these important institutions.
Thank you for your answer.